my name is Carrie. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my channel where I talk about all my crafty and creative endeavors. Today I've got mostly knitting to talk about and just some stuff at the end. I'll talk about my new job. So anyway, thank you for being here. I am recording today, Monday, September 24th, 2018. I will probably get this edited and uploaded by tomorrow, so it will be the 25th. But thank you for joining me. It's been a couple of weeks because I had started a new job a couple weeks ago, and so just trying to get settled into a new schedule and get to the point where I'm not so exhausted that I can actually talk to you guys. So here I am, and I want to, get on with it here. So I'll talk about the job stuff towards the end. But over the last couple weeks, like last week, I did some quilting, which I don't have the quilt to show you because I had to give it back. But my friend Jenny, who used to own the quilt shop that I used to quilt for, she still designs quilt patterns, and so she had a Christmas quilt pattern that she is going to be releasing soon. She's going under Lamb Farm Designs, and I will put the link to that and any links to follow in the description box below. So I'll put some pictures in so you can see. It's a really cute quilt. It was fun to quilt. It took, I had to do it little bits at a time because I was still getting used to the new job, which was very, very exhausting at first. So, so anyway, that's what I did quilting wise. I even thought that would be a fun pattern to get and take some of the blocks and just make a block and make like a pot holder or something, a Christmas trivet or something with just the one block, even to not even have to make the whole quilt. And so I may do that. I don't know. We'll see what kind of time I have. So that was some of the quilting that I did. Quilted it on my long arm, and that was fun. I enjoyed it. I like quilting her quilts because she puts her quilts together really well, and it's a joy to quilt. Saturday, so today's Monday, so Saturday I went to Oregon Flock and Fiber Festival with my friends Michelle and Leslie of the Naughty Knitwits and our friend Lori, and it was my first year going. They've talked about it in the past, and I don't know, for some reason it just the timing just didn't work out for me or whatever, but this year I got to go, and I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. Of course, it's always fun to hang around your friends and do fibery stuff, but I went with the list because there were a few things that I knew that I wanted to get, and and I did. I got everything on my list plus one extra thing, but I got everything on my list, so that was really fun. So I'll share some of that with you. One of the things I wanted to get, I have talked about my attempt at drop spindle spinning, and my friend Jane, who comes to Knit Night, sat with me one knit night and gave me some fibers to play with and gave me some techniques, and then she was spinning on a drop spindle, and it was a Turkish spindle, and I have seen them in the past. I just didn't understand like what the differences were. And so I thought, okay, I want to get a Turkish spindle because I can see where I can maybe get a better result. And the way you wind it on the arms of the spindle, it like puts it already into a ball of yarn. That's a center pull. So that's one of the things I got. And I got this beautiful drop spindle. It was funny because that was on my list, and I had been looking, and I told, Lori was looking for me, and Michelle and Leslie knew that I was looking for a Turkish spindle, and I just couldn't find anything. And I happened to walk by this booth that was outside, and Jane, who is the person teaching me how to do this, was in the booth with her spinning guild. So she was on duty, I think just giving information. And I'm like, oh, Jane, perfect person. This is what I've got, and this is what I'm looking for. And she goes, you have to go see Ed. Like, Ed, he makes the best spindles. They're super well balanced. They're just high quality. And, I get off here in 8 minutes, come back, and I'll take you over there, and I'll help you pick one out. So that's what I did. And her and I went, and we found Ed. And so it's Ed Jenkins. I will put his information down below, but he makes these. And so there's even information on the back that he's printed. And so it tells how heavy it is. This is a spalted hawthorn wood, which I just thought was really pretty. So you can see those little black lines in there. That is what makes it spalted, and it can happen to any kind of wood. And it's kind of like a disease that's in the wood, but it actually gave it some really neat character. And so I just thought it was really pretty. And so I now have a Turkish spindle, which just spins really, really nice. So I got on YouTube when I got home because I don't know how to use one. You know, my other spindle had the whirl at the top with a hook, and this doesn't have a hook. And she said most Turkish spindles, they don't have a hook. You do a half hitch around this top little, there's like kind of grooved there. So, so I have to have fiber to spin. And when Jane helped me before and gave me some fiber to spin, I was way more successful with fiber that she gave me that was Polworth wool. And Polworth wool's got a longer staple than whatever it was that I was using. I had a good quality fiber before, and I just don't remember what it was. And it could have been a merino, which has a smaller staple length. And so I found, because you know I have to go with purple, but it has different colors in it. So this is Polworth and silk. So it's 85% Polworth and 15% silk. And it was from Mosaic Moon is the dyer. The colorway is Morrigan. I don't know what that is in reference to. So yeah, so I've got some gray, and then like this, I liked this little pop of rust in there. So it'll have some really interesting colors to spin up. So I'm going to wait. Knit Night's tomorrow. I'm going to wait until tomorrow before I get into this, just because I don't want to start it and then kind of mess it up and then not be able to use all of the fiber. Because once it's spun into yarn, it's yarn. You can't unspin it and make it roving again. So, so yeah, I'm pretty excited to give that a try. I think that'll be really fun. Another thing I was looking for is I wanted to get a gauge ruler, and it's one of these. I wanted to get one of these little wooden. It's pretty simple, but it's a 4-inch square cut out in the middle, so that you can lay it down on your knitting, and you can see exactly where your 4-inch for the amount of stitches and 4 inches for the amount of rows, and it makes it easier. I've been using a ruler, and this just to block out that 4-inch square on a swatch. It'll be more helpful. So because there was a project I was doing and I wanted a swatch for it, I was going to make the Tegna sweater, and I needed a swatch for it. And so I had a sweater knitted up with the same base of yarn. And when I made that 70s tee, which I talked about in several episodes ago, I thought, okay, well, I liked that gauge that I got. So I looked at what my needle size was with that, and I needed to count on my made sweater. So this would have been really handy. That project is a no-go at this point. I did some swatching, got to within a stitch. I think it calls for, the Tegna sweater calls for anywhere from a 3 to like a 7, depending on your gauge. And so I was using a size 6, and I was 1 stitch off. I probably could have gone to a 7, but I was feeling like the fabric was going to get too loose. So I thought, okay, that's all right, because it's got all this positive ease. So I actually did the math on it. I know I'm kind of going off track here, but I actually did the math on it based on my stitch count, and I didn't worry too much about the row count because you end up just kind of going by a measurement. I thought, okay, I'll make this one size. There's all this extra ease, and I don't really want all that extra ease, so that actually will make it fit better. Well, the sweater is kind of an A-line style sweater, and I would have had like almost 20 inches of positive ease around the bottom in order for it to fit across the top because of the shape. And I just thought, that's too much. That's just way too much. I think it would be good maybe if you knitted with like a silk yarn that really draped really well. But just using my superwash merino wool, you know, it wasn't going to give me that drape that I liked. And I thought, you know, I don't know enough about sweater knitting to start making alterations to the pattern. And so I decided not to go with that. So I used the yarn for something else. So wheel back around to when I was at Oregon Flock and Fiber, because I kind of got off track. When I bought the needle gauge or the stitch gauge, I got a kind of a souvenir Progress Keeper stitch marker from a needle runs through it, and it has a little sheep and it says off 2018. So got a little souvenir stitch marker dealy bob. Michelle and Leslie were going to be meeting with a couple of viewers by the Jam PDX booth, and that Jam PDX, they make really cool ceramic mugs and yarn bowls and cake stands and all that stuff. So we were standing there talking, or they were talking to these two ladies, and I didn't catch their names. And then Sue came up and talked to me. Thank you so much. That was nice. And so while I was standing there, I was noticing in their booth that they had this cowl, and it was made with like a bulky-ish yarn, pretty thick yarn. I said, I'm really liking the pattern that's on it, but you know, I don't make anything out of that kind of bulky yarn. And it was the Bubble Up cowl. I'll put a link to this. It's on Ravelry. So what I was talking to her, and I'm like, well, I bet I can just take the stitch pattern and do it with fingering weight to not make it such a bulky cowl. And it looked really cute on her, and then she made it like the way it was so that it had like would kind of stand up, and that's not for me. And so we were talking about it, and she says, you know, you could do it with fingering, make it longer, and then you can double it up. So I would double up the Bubble Up. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm thinking I'm going to use my yarn that I got at Oregon Flock and Fiber. I got some Huckleberry knits. She makes really pretty gradient. Get some of that purple out of there. Really pretty gradient yarn. She has really, really nice yarn. And I wasn't planning on purchasing her, but I love a gradient. So I thought, well, that would be really cool with this pattern. This pattern has like almost like a bobble that it makes. And so I'm thinking it'll show up on this, because this will read as different colors, but it reads pretty solid. Make it long enough that I can wear it double. So I think I'm going to look and see what the length is of the Copilot cowl, because that's a doubled up cowl, free pattern on Rav, but it's a good length. So I thought I'd look at that, maybe cast on that many stitches, and then do the pattern from this. So stay tuned. See how that works out. I talked about just started talking about my attempt at making the Tegna sweater and the issues I had with it. I was going to make it out of yarn that I pulled out the cardigan that I was making on my knitting machine. It was the one that with the dark purple and a kind of lighter purple striped cardigan, and something just wasn't quite right with the way it was made, and it was to the point where it was like, I don't know that I can fix this, and if I fix it, I don't know if I'll wear it. And so I just took it all out, ripped it all out, and I was going to do the Tegna. Well, one of the issues I was having is because it was a cardigan, I had a lot of little pieces. Like the back is knit all as one piece, but then you have separate small pieces for your sleeves, and then you know, panel here and a panel here, because it was all seamed together. So I had all these like partial balls of yarn, and I thought that's just going to be a mess trying to make a sweater out of it. And then the color, I wanted to use the lighter color, and I needed like 3 skeins of that, and I only had 2 skeins of that, and so it was like, okay, it's just not meant to be. But a while ago, Andy, who is Andre Sue Knits, had posted on Instagram that she made, this is free on Ravelry, so she made this shrug type thing. So basically it is sleeves. It just kind of goes around the back, and it's just sleeves. And I thought, oh, that would be really nice when I'm just in the winter time, when it gets colder and I just want to sit and knit. I don't necessarily need like a whole sweater on. I just need something like on my arms or across my shoulders, and shawls are always falling off, and I thought that would be really cool. And it was interesting because somebody had brought a crocheted, real lacy crocheted shrug like this to knit night one night, and I'm like, I need to try and figure out how to make something like that. Well, then Andy did, And so she posted it to Instagram when I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. And she did it with fingering weight yarn. And so she based the pattern off of the Verdant pattern, which is on Ravelry. It's a free pattern. It's by that pattern's Gina Bonomo. And but that calls for Aran weight yarn. And so Andy figured it out to do it in fingering weight. And so she wrote basically just a real rough recipe for it and gave like how many stitches and how many rows. And so I took my gauge because I'd been doing gauge swatches, and I thought, you know, it's just a long rectangle stockinette. Well, this version stockinette, you could do whatever you want. I'm like, I can just do this on the knitting machine because that's like exactly perfect for that type of thing. You're just knitting endless rows of stockinette. I can crank this baby out on my knitting machine. So I wanted to share, these are all my swatches that I've done. Oh, there you go. I just picked this up at the thrift store. I think it's supposed to be for vegetables, but it works for this. And so when I've done swatches, these are done on the machine. I've just added a little tag that gives the information, what my setting was on the machine, what my stitch count, row count was, and that kind of thing. So that's that. I've also done some hand knitting swatches, and these were done in the round. So I just brought the yarn to the back and then just trimmed it. But I added a little tag for that too. So then when I need to make something, and I've got this base, because this is a base that I carried, I've already done a swatch for it. It doesn't matter what color it's in, the count is going to be the same. So I found the swatch that had the same stitch count as what Andy called for in her recipe. And then I did the math, knowing you're supposed to make it 50 inches long. I knew I was getting about 10 rows per inch. So I knew I needed to knit 500 rows. So I got that going, used the yarn from the sweater I tore out, which is just this dark purple. This is Royalty. And you do a provisional cast on. So on the knitting machine, you just knit with scrap yarn that you'll pull out. So now what I'll do is I've made the entire rectangle. I timed myself because I was just curious at how fast it was going. And I could do 21 rows per minute with a knitting machine. So if I just sat and did just that, in about a half hour, 35 minutes, I could do all 500 rows. That's why it's nice to have a knitting machine, because I don't think I would ever actually knit this. So I've got provisional, basically like a provisional cast on either end. And so what Andy's done is she's written out a chart for doing lace. So you can add lace on the sleeves. So what you do is you take your rectangle, it's going to fit across like this and on your arm, and then you sew up a sleeve. So you sew up like so many inches, make a sleeve, and then leave the rest open. So she's written a lace pattern that can go along the edge of the sleeves, and then what'll be around the edge of the neck and across the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is, the other color that was in that sweater was Mystical, which is just a lighter purple. And so that's what my lace is going to be. So I got this blocked yesterday, blocked it to size and everything. And I blocked it because that helps relax the roll that happens with stockinette so that it's easier to pick up the stitches. So my next thing is to pick up, pick up my provisional cast on onto hand knitting needles and knit the lace on both ends. I'll sew up the sleeves, and then I'll pick up stitches along the top edge and along the bottom edge and do the lace as well, and then it'll be done. So it'll be dark purple with a lighter purple kind of tonal variegated lace edging. So that was really cool, and it was really neat and nice of Andy to write it out, because I guess she had a lot of people that were interested in how she did hers, and so that was very helpful for me to know how many stitches did she do. And So if this works out and it's something that I find that I wear, that's a really great way to kind of make a sweater, sort of. I weighed this rectangle, so before the lace edging and stuff, and it equaled about 250 grams. So it's 2.5 skeins of yarn to just make the rectangle in this gauge and everything. And so, so you'll end up needing about three skeins to do it. What Andy did in her version is she took remnants from like leftover projects and just sort of striped them in, faded them in, and it's a multicolored one. So I might try that. I just wanted to try and see, use up this yarn that I had already kind of out. When I unraveled the sweater, I put the yarn into a skein, a hank, and then soaked it and hung it to dry and let it hang long waist so the weight would kind of relax it. And it did pretty good. It's still got a little bit of a kink in it, just a little bit, but it's not bad. So that helped relax it. You don't notice it now that I've blocked this rectangle. You can't even tell. So that's going to be my next project. I think it'll be fun. And I was really thankful to Andy to that she did that, because she did it for free. So last episode I talked about Chevy Rails doing a knit along for the In the Light shawl. It's a cowl and a shawl. It's a shawl. And I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I wasn't too sure on my yarns. Well, meanwhile, I finally gave in and I bought one of the skeins of yarn that Hannah of Hannah Made It did for the Tits Out Collective. I just love Hannah's aesthetic. I love her style, and I just kept going like, no, what am I gonna make? I don't know. And so then finally it was just like, you know what? Just get it. So there's some gray. So when I got it, this brilliant idea. I already have a skein of hers that I got, and this is, your purple is showing. So you've got a little bit of that neon pinky purple, and then you've got this, it's got more saturation with some yellow and orange and that kind of thing. And I thought, if I put it with some charcoal, there's my In the Light shawl. And that made me super happy. Like when all three of those colors went together, I knew that that's what I needed to make it with. So you fade it in. You fade it in and kind of go from light to dark. And so it'll go light to dark, and it'll be fun and colorful and more me, and I'm really excited. So now I don't know if I'm going to get it done for the cowl, because I think her cowl, I think it goes till the end of October. Oh, I don't know. It depends on how much I work on it, because I also want to get this other thing done. Oh, I think I just put the tag on the wrong one. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do the cowl, do it as the cowl. I may just make it just because it's going to be awesome. So Hannah, fantastic job on your dye job. I love your stuff. And I'm glad I got a skein. Oh my goodness, is that it? Okay, another thing I need to mention. I did a giveaway for 9-inch circular ChiaoGoo needles in a size 3, and I picked a winner, and the winner has not contacted me yet. So I'm going to leave it out, put it out there that you need to contact me. The Knitted Lamb is Michelle from Missouri, and if I don't hear from you within the next couple weeks, by the time I record again, then I'm going to pick another winner. So just want to put that out there. So that's really all I have. I'm going to go into kind of more just stuff. So if that's all you're here for is just that creative stuff, it's done. It's over. I didn't get a ton done because of the new job, but it'll get better. So I did start my new job working in the cafeteria at the local high school. And so my first day was on the 10th, and it happened to be just a super, super humid day. And oh my gosh, I thought I was going to die in that kitchen. I was just dripping with sweat, plus the nerves and everything. Everybody's really nice. That first week was really tough. There was a lot of new information going into my brain, trying to find a place in the filing system to stay. Because absolutely everything I did was new to me. And I had a person with me all week that was training me, and she's very sweet and was very helpful. But for a lot of that, she goes, okay, you need to cut up this and you need to cook this. And I was like, how do you know that's what you need to do? So then she kind of backed up a little bit, got that information. And so every Monday I do the same thing. Every Tuesday I do something different. So every day is different, but every day of the week is the same, if that makes any sense. So today was a little rough. Mondays are a little harder anyway. And I'm like, I just was off track. And I'm like, where's my meat for my wraps? And they're like, no, you don't use that. You use this. And I'm like, why don't I remember that? And then somebody reminded me, you've only had 2 days of training on Monday, so give yourself a break. So something else I have to do once everything's done and all the food is where it needs to be, then I'm also out on the register to check the kids out because I have cash handling experience because I worked for a bank for a number of years. So I also had to learn that system. So the whole POS system and the computer would kind of crash, and trying to know what's a lunch and what's an entree and what, it was like there was just so much new stuff. And I would come home so thoroughly exhausted, you would have thought I worked a 12-hour day. I was like, I can't move. My body was sore. I was doing really good about stretching. It was a lot. It was a lot physically. It was a lot mentally, just because it was just so much information. So I'm still having to kind of go through my notes and take each day with my notes and everything. But I felt like last week, Thursday, Friday, felt a little bit better. I felt like I could breathe a little and it wasn't so frantic. So I'm in charge of making the wraps every day, and they're different wraps depending on the day of the week. And then I make an entree, and then I do the cash register stuff and put out certain foods, the salads and all that. I mean, like, everybody has their job and it all works really great. And I just have to trust the system. And they're super great about answering my questions. And it's getting better, but it's tough. It's pretty tough. It's nice to get off and have the afternoon to still do something. And so just getting a new routine to not have the mornings. I usually would do most of my creating and stuff like that in the mornings. I'm more productive in the morning, which is good that I work mornings because I'm more productive in the morning. So, but it's good. It's fine. It's a job. It's not anything it's not like my passion, but it's a job and it's fine. It's going to bring in some money, and that's what it's all about. So it's all good. I'm starting to learn some of the kids' names, which is really nice. And it goes through. We get all the kids. It's one lunch hour for the whole school. And I think there's 3 cash registers. So there's 2 other gals that take the cash. And we get everybody through. Everybody that's buying lunch. So not every student buys lunch, but everybody that's buying lunch, we get them through in 10 minutes. So it's a hustle. It's a real hustle for 3 hours. So it's like from the time I get there till the time we're done checking everybody through, then it's like, okay, now relax a little. And now I got to prep for tomorrow or for the next, 2 days ahead. I got to look at what I got to make 2 days ahead so I can thaw it out. And it's just a lot of stuff, but it's going to be fine. So, that is all I have today. I know it's a shorter episode because I really didn't do very much. I mean, I just didn't even have the energy to work on socks. So it feels good to feel like I'm in the mood to knit some stuff, and got excited about some projects. So that feels really good. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll have some finished objects or some better works in progress. I'm still just plugging along on my socks, just picking those up every once in a while. And yeah, that's it. So I hope everything is well with you, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Thanks for being here.